Hello, my name is Rabbi Dr. Juan Bejarano Gutierrez, and this is my beautiful wife, Rebbetzin, Miryam Bejarano Gutierrez. And we wanted to take this opportunity to talk about Congregation Zohar Yisrael. Over the last several months, we've had a lot of significant changes. I guess you could say sort of part of the maturation process that comes along with a synagogue that began in our homes and has outgrown it. Zohar Yisrael was founded on with the principal focus or mission of helping Bnei Anusim, the descendants of Iberian conversos, who were in the process of returning to Judaism, exploring their Jewish roots, and wanting to connect with the community that would in many ways understand what the challenges were that they were experiencing. But one of the things that we found is that as we started that project many years ago, the tools or the mechanisms and the approach that we were using was also conducive to something else, which I think is extremely important in the post-October the 7th world. What we noticed is that since we had a tremendous amount of understanding for Bnei Anusim, individuals who were coming from varied backgrounds, sometimes Catholic or Protestant or different backgrounds of that nature, that the way that we were communicating the message of what Judaism was in many ways resonating with individuals who were interested in Judaism but who were not Jewish. That is to say, they were curious Christians. There were individuals who had impressions about Judaism but had never attended a synagogue. And so what we found is that as long as we were open and the ground rules were set up to say that, this is a traditional synagogue, we could be extremely open and inviting to people, and that resonated with people. And as a consequence, that became very attractive to people who began to visit and to grow. In some cases, they decide to continue their journey in Judaism. And in other cases, they decide that they want to retain their identity as it currently stands. But in any case, it's a positive experience for them in terms of what they've learned and participated in our services and in our shiurim. And I think in the October 7th, the post-October the 7th world, this is extremely important because, of course, we've seen tragically in the United States a tremendous amount of open anti-Semitism arise, where Israel has become the target of anti-Semitism as opposed to being the recognized innocent recipient of the violence that was perpetrated by Hamas and others. So we see that in many ways as congruent with what Zohar Yisrael is doing, educating individuals that are from backgrounds that are Bnei Anusim, but also presenting an image of Judaism to the rest of the world that is open, that is traditional, and that desires to communicate the knowledge of Hashem to anyone that is interested. Now, many times people ask us, well, what makes Zohar Yisrael different? And I'm sure that every synagogue in the Dallas area and beyond can point to specific aspects of the makeup of their congregation that is unique. In many ways, we are unique because we have I guess you could say, sort of a unique perspective. We identify ourselves as traditional. Many years ago when we first started, we were looking for congregational affiliation, and we found the Union for Traditional Judaism. Now, the Union for Traditional Judaism doesn't have congregational affiliation anymore, but the principles that were laid out by the Union, many of the rabbis that came from that movement were from the older conservative movement, and some are from Orthodox backgrounds. It was a movement that emphasizes a commitment to halakha, but at the same time coupled that with what we would call intellectual honesty. In that sense, I think we represent something of the middle, which is hard to find in much of the Jewish community anymore. There are many synagogues and temples that are to the left of us, shall we say, that are progressive, and there are many synagogues to the right of us, if we want to use those terms, that are more orthodox or Haredi, if you want to use those terms. We felt that there was something that was missing, that was a balanced approach that remained committed to halakha, but was also very inviting and understanding of where people were. And so what we did is we remained committed to traditional standards of observance, but we also understand where people are coming from and realize that it's a very progressive step of education and looking at where each individual is coming from. And the other thing that we did is also that we focused in on a lot of basic education, and also recognizing that the future of our community is ultimately in our children. One of the things that we find in Zohar Yisrael is that oftentimes when we started in our home, there would be kids running around in the service, they would be under the bima, they would be, basically all over the place, and that was perfectly fine. Because what we wanted was for them to experience the liturgy, and what we found over time, as challenging as it may have been in the beginning, is those children became familiar with the liturgy. They saw the synagogue as a positive experience. They wanted to go to the synagogue, they wanted to play, they wanted to sing, they wanted to be there with their friends. And so we thought, how much, what can be better than to create an environment that is inviting for families with young children? And so our small community that has outgrown our home now finds ourselves with many, many children. And that's the exciting part of our journey, because we realize that if we have young families, if we have young children, we have a future. And communicating the importance of Judaism and Jewish values to the next generation is really at the heart of what we are trying to do. That's why you can find a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old at the bima reciting prayers and participating in the service, because we want to communicate this idea that Judaism is for them. We are transmitting l'dor vador, one generation to the next, the values and the beliefs and the commitments that we have and that we truly believe in. And so I would say that those are some basic characteristics that define Zohar Yisrael. We follow the Orot Sidur, which is a traditional Sephardic Sidur. Many of the melodies that we use are influenced or based upon melodies from the Spanish and Portuguese tradition. But we also have others that come from Moroccan and Syrian and Turkish backgrounds. And then we also have various Ashkenazic tunes that we've incorporated into our liturgy. It's truly a unique experience. And one of the things that we also emphasize that I wanted to mention is that we place a tremendous amount of importance on eating together after Shabbat and then singing Pizmonim and Zemirot. When I was a much younger man, I had the opportunity to travel to Poland in 2002 and 2003. And I visited a small community in Krakow that was working with the Ronald Lauder Foundation. And one of the things that came out of that was an exposure, I think it was Rabbi Doshinsky, who had recorded and taught the community there a wide range of zemirot, Hungarian, Romanian, Polish, all types that I had never heard of before. And in many ways, we brought those back into our community and coupled those with the Sephardic Pizmonim that we sing and created a very unique musical experience, because we believe that the way to transmit the liturgy and the beauty of the liturgy is to sing it, to communicate the ideas of Judaism through song. And so we place a tremendous amount of effort. We pronounce every word. We focus in on people becoming educated so they can participate in the service. And that's why one of our own members, took about 3 years for him to do so, created an equivalent to the Orot Sidur, which is a transliterated version. It has the Hebrew, it has the transliteration, it has the full English text, but it was made as a way of keeping people engaged and helping them on their journey to learn Hebrew, and so that they could learn the melodies and participate in that. So I wanted to emphasize those aspects of our synagogue, and of course I wanted to let my wife comment as well on what she believes is characteristic of Zohar Yisrael and what we believe is important for our community.
And so, hi everybody. One of the things that I really focus on and try to transmit is the importance of education for the women in our synagogue. Because we are the ones that transfer that on to our children. We are the ones. It's like the husband is like the trunk, and we're the branches, and we're the leaves. We're the ones that because of us, Hashem's strength comes from, and we're the ones that transfer the identity as Jews to our children. So that's why I make such a big push toward educating women, so that they could become their identity as Jewesses become strong and become fortified, and while also imparting that education with compassion and understanding and empathy to whatever part of the journey they may be, and whatever unique family interaction there may be. So want to make it as personalized as possible. We wanted to make it as accessible as possible. And we believe that compassion and understanding is one of the main things, the core things that should be part of a community as a whole. And so that children, women, and men become strong in their closest with Hashem.
There's something else that I wanted to mention, and I think what's interesting is that, this is a personal passion for myself and for my wife. It's not my full-time job. In fact, I'm a full-time engineer, but I love the synagogue, and I devoted many years of study, part-time, over 15 years, to be able to complete a master's degree, a doctorate, and of course smicha, because I wanted to be the resource that was available to a small community that didn't have the funds to be able to hire a full-time rabbi. So for my wife and I, this is a personal passion. We don't derive any money from this. This is purely volunteer-based. And what we've tried to inculcate is this idea within our community that we want to raise up a new generation of leaders, both men and women, in terms of education, master's degrees in Jewish studies, B'ezrat Hashem, doctorates in Jewish studies, graduate certificates, eventually smicha for men and so forth. Because we believe that that's really the way to keep people engaged. Many years ago, Rabbi Byron Sherwin of blessed memory, he was a professor at the Spartus Institute of Jewish Studies in Chicago, and he mentioned that he was a pulpit rabbi for a very short period of time, and he received a critique from one of his congregants about how keeping mitzvot, how keeping the Torah was easy for him, because in essence he was paid to do so. And he sort of responded in some fashion, but it was sort of a realization to me that sometimes there's an unfortunate disconnect that it often exists between, shall we say, the laity, to use that term, and professional rabbinic leadership. And so it's not a critique against other communities in any way, but for us, there has to be sort of this continuity that exists between the rabbi, the Rebbetzin, and the rest of the community. We have the same challenges that any of our families have. We have 3 small boys, and we face the same challenges that any other person faces. And so this is what we call a working class community. Nobody here is wealthy. We don't really have any dues. We have expenses because we do have a building, but we just sort of lay that out as what our target is to meet the rent, and that's pretty much it. People volunteer, people contribute as they're able to, and I think it's very organic in that sense, is that people really have a sense of ownership. If they want this community to succeed, they can do so, in terms of their participation, and there isn't any kind of pressure that we just sort of lay out what's needed and that's it. And again, this is just a personal passion for us, because we want to transmit, we want to create an environment that is not just there for our children, but for the children that we see in other families, something that will last well into the future. In many ways, the Jewish community in America faces sort of an interesting challenge. It's a demographic challenge. If you look at the Pew Research Center and other studies, the average age of Jews in the United States is becoming older and older. And one of the challenges that exist is how to make sure that younger generations are connected to Judaism, and so that they don't assimilate, they don't lose their connections to the synagogue. And that's really one of the drives that we have, is to keep the synagogue vibrant. That's one of our taglines, spiritual vibrancy. And again, we do that in part through the songs, the liturgy that we sing, something that is not simply enjoyable, but it's very stirring spiritually. And we believe that that's one of the key ways that we can do so in terms of connecting our children and the people that come to our synagogue. The other thing is the education process, as my wife mentioned. She focuses in on the women, the sisterhood of our community. But generally, we study together after Shabbat service, after Shacharit, after lunch, and of course we do Kiddush and so forth, and Pizmonim and Zemirot. We usually have a shi'ur before Mincha, and it'll be on some topic related to the Torah. It might be on philosophy. We were talking about the Rambam this last Shabbat. But it's something that I think many people find engaging. They participate in. They can contribute their perspectives. It's something that keeps the discussion alive and often serves as the basis for future topics that we address on other classes online or on future Shabbats. So it's something that we place a tremendous amount of effort on because we think that it's critical for people to be engaged and to participate in this process of learning.
And also, we want is our goal is for women and children and men to become passionate about Hashem, a passion that comes from the soul, that it kind of like the burning passion for learning Torah. So and also while being inviting to the children, we don't want children or teens to be disconnected. We want teens engage our teens and our children, and for that that love Hashem gets transferred on. And basically, we have become a big family. We're all really close, and we can't wait to meet other families who are looking for a family-oriented community, Jewish community, and so that their children can grow and feel welcome and feel that it's fun to go to synagogue, and it's fun to learn Torah, and it's fun with your parents. It's something that becomes enjoyable.
It's interesting that my wife has said this before. She says that we're building a Jewish community from the ground up. And I was thinking about it this week because it's literally happening, because we have one of our members, an Israeli, who is a demolition expert, as I like to say. She's tearing up our kitchen. She's physically, repairing it. We have another person that's a member, two women, who are extremely handy. They're redoing our kitchen again from the ground up. We have one of our members that built our bima, and this is very special to me because this bima was designed initially by my father of blessed memory. He passed away, unfortunately and tragically, this summer, but he left plans for this bima to be rebuilt, reassembled, and he said something interesting. He said, I'm going to leave it to the next generation of young guys, is the way he put it, to put it together, to do the hard labor. And I thought that, it was very meaningful to me because in some sense, obviously it's true. He laid the foundation, and now we have the younger group, 40s and 50s that are putting it together, but their children are participating in it. We have individuals, we have one individual who was responsible for putting the bima together, and his children, who are 3 and 2 years old, were there hammering and participating with him. And now we have an ark that's under construction. People have been painting the synagogue. It's a leased space, but we are investing in making it home, shall we say. Yeah. And people are literally volunteering and participating in building the community up from the ground up. And so when my wife talks about family, we really do feel that that's what we want to achieve. We're concerned about the welfare of our members. People were there for me when my father passed away. People were there for me when my mother of blessed memory died several years ago. And we want to be there through those life cycle events. We have marriages that we look forward to, Bezrat Hashem, next year. We have a Brit Milah, Bezrat Hashem, other things that we look forward to. And it really is not just a communal event, a synagogue event, but it's a family event. And I think that is really the heart of what we want to communicate to people that are interested, that are looking for a synagogue home. It's a very family-friendly environment. And even as we've grown and outgrown our home, we want to retain that. That is a critical component of what we do. And many of the rooms that we have in our new lease space are dedicated to children, to teens, and eventually to sort of an intermediate
mothers
age
as well.
group. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and nursing mothers as well. So we want a place for everybody, so that a nursing mom can be in the room, and then she needs to. The children will be learning in the children's room. The teens will an area for them, so that every single soul, that we have here, becomes close to Hashem.
And I should add also that we have a high number of young people, children, as well as adults, who are on the autistic spectrum. That includes some of our own children. And it's interesting because it's almost as if Hashem has orchestrated this, because many families have found us because of that specific issue. We weren't looking to create a community that was receptive to that, but we had our own practical needs for our own children. Yes. And as a consequence, we've had people on a range of spectrum, on the spectrum, or other issues with physical ailments and so forth, and people are so understanding. It's just so moving to me to see people that, they have their own challenges, and they're appreciative of other people that have their own struggles in life. And so the synagogue is very welcoming to people that are going through that. And
yes, we wanted to be the first synagogue that would be friendly toward autistic children and adults, and neurodivergent friendly. So that's one of my big projects, to make a classroom friendly for children in the spectrum, to make the synagogue friendly for the spectrum, like provide anything that is needed. So for adults in the spectrum as well as children in the spectrum. And so that's pretty much it, really. We wanted to really communicate who we are as a synagogue and what we stand for. So I hope that everyone has a wonderful day, and thank you all for listening, and bye everyone.